So recently I've talked a lot about inflation and the crippled state of the economy. However, today I'm going to offer some suggestions as to how inflation or the economy can sort of be stabilised and not get even worse. You see, when the economy is in crisis, there's a fine line between deflation and just stabilising things. Now, don't get me wrong, deflation is usually associated with negatives. You know, it's usually worse than a little bit of inflation. I'm not saying it will be good all around, but maybe for a couple of items it may help out. So really I've got a few suggestions that will target the most affected areas of Skyblock. First of all, we talk about the main reason for this massive inflation, and that's basically just a pest control issue with macros. You see, the Garden 1.5 update saw the sell value of crops to the NPC increase, and because of this, fewer and fewer players are actually selling the crops to the bazaar. You see, when you sell crops to the NPC, you sell the crops to the NPC and you receive money from nothing, from thin air. This means that more money is added to the economy, devaluing the rest of the money that's already in circulation. As opposed to when you sell to the bazaar, when you sell crops to the bazaar, somebody else buys those crops. So that money isn't being created, that money that you receive is somebody else's money, meaning that there's no money just magicked up. Which means, in theory, all we need to do is incentivize people selling the crops to the bazaar. I mean, before this, if they could just do something like macros, then the majority of this problem will be solved. But considering that seems unlikely, a simple way to increase people selling the crops to the bazaar would be just to implement a minimum price, which is actually above the NPC sell value. That means that if people were to quick sell things to the bazaar, they would always make more money than selling to the NPC, which would basically mean, other than for Iron Man players, this guy would be obsolete, or any other NPC for selling crops, which would in turn stop such massive inflation. Honestly, at this point, a lot of the damage has already been done, but it's a step in the right direction. Now, before I move on to something else, you should subscribe to the channel. Become part of the 24%, there's no reason not to. Also, you should join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of every single video. If you're in the market for dungeon carries or slayer carries, or just a nice place to hang out in voice calls, or just be part of the community, you should join. Yesterday it was popping off, we had 99 people in room 1. Crazy. Anyway, moving on. Next up, we've got one really simple change that would benefit the game massively, not just for this particular item, just in general. Due to the RNG meter changes pretty much yesterday, Necron's handles are now a lot higher in price. From now onwards, there's going to be a lot less in circulation. At the moment, you see a lot on the market, and they're a little bit cheaper. These will go back up. The only reason these are so expensive is because people who had dropped Necron's handles, basically just holding on to them until they go up further in price before the RNG change during inflation, have now basically just wanting to cash in on the price being so high. I'm pretty sure these will go up even further though. But that's besides the point. At the moment, people are massively disincentivized to actually play dungeons. A lot of people were basically abusing a bug during Floor 7. Like I said, I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you want to know about it, you can watch yesterday's video. But anyway, cut long story short, less people playing dungeons. Now, to incentivize people to play dungeons, they could simply just increase the chance of dropping scrolls. This would decrease the price, which inherently isn't a bad thing because of the ridiculous price of scrolls. The whole idea of a Hyperion is to be able to get the Necron's handle and then not have to spend too much more money in comparison to the handle to actually get a maxed out hype. It's stupid that the handle is actually cheaper than the scrolls. It's just insane. So if they increase the chances of dropping a scroll, not only will this reduce the price of the scrolls, it will reduce the price of a maxed out Hyperion, which is good because at the moment it's too expensive. And also, because of the incentive to play dungeons more, everything else will become less expensive because it will be dropped more frequently. For example, recombobulators are almost 50 million coins. This is absolutely insane. If more people play dungeons, more people actually open the chest at the end of a run, and more people will drop recombobulators, therefore more supply dropping the price. The same can be said, well, maybe not for the Master Stars because there'll be an incentive to play 4-7 if they increase the chances of scrolls, but pretty much everything else. And at the moment, this price right here is a massive issue. It shouldn't be 15 million coins to recombobulate an item. Regardless of inflation, this is not right. It isn't proportionate. And to think if you want to recom your whole talismans bag, how many accessories are you recomming at that point? I currently have 90 talismans, and all of them are recombobulated. Thankfully, I recombobulated probably about 95% of them when they were about 5 or 6 mil each. For instance, at this moment in time, if I have 90 talismans and none of them are recombobulated, and I decide, well, I want more magical power, so I'm going to recombobulate all of them, it's going to cost me 1.35 billion. I'm sorry, but that just isn't right. Alternatively, I could buy a pretty much fully maxed Terminator with 5 Master Stars for that price. And to put it into perspective, majority of people who play on Skyblock don't have even a talisman bag worth 1.3 billion. And that's just for recons. Not to mention that I don't even have all the talismans. I have 90 and there's probably way over 100. Well, according to Skycrypt, there's 98, but at the same time, it says I have 1064 magical power, which isn't true, so yeah. Okay, moving on. The next idea isn't actually mine, and it's an idea that I've seen and heard a lot of people saying in my Discord server. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'm going to mention it. So we all know the only way to buy a booster cookie is to basically, well, forget about the bazaar for now. The only way to actually firstly obtain a booster cookie will be to buy it with Skyblock gems. And yeah, people say pay to win. I guess it is a little bit, but that's besides the point. Now, if you buy Skyblock gems, and with those gems you buy booster cookies, of course you can sell them to the bazaar. And that's the whole point of being able to buy gems, and it being a little bit pay to win. Okay, fine. You've sold those cookies to the bazaar. Now, because of the massive inflation at the moment, and because cookies have rose like 5 to 6 million coins in the past couple of months, people obviously have started investing in cookies. And well, I don't just mean a few cookies, I mean bulk investing. I mean full chestfuls, full double chestfuls, a ton of cookies. And that's part of the problem. If people are holding on to the cookies and not selling them and not using them and they're literally just sat there, then that is going to massively drive the price up. So the idea is that basically you can buy booster cookies fine, that doesn't change. You can use gems, you can buy the booster cookies. You can sell them to the bazaar if you've bought the booster cookies. But once you actually buy a booster cookie from the bazaar, you're then not able to sell it back to the bazaar. Which means that the only reason for buying booster cookies would be to use them. Now, if they were to implement this, I think it would only work if they gave people warning, so they could sell them back to the bazaar. Now, this in turn could crash the prices, but is that better than them being 8.5 mil? Maybe so. On the other hand, what will probably happen is they would just implement the change and people would have a ton of booster cookies that they would be forced to use. Which, once again, over time, would drive the price down. Obviously, you'd still be fighting against inflation, but I think it would work. However, I'm not 100% sure if that would ever happen, and to be honest, I'm not 100% sure whether the effects will be positive. Don't get me wrong, there are many, many more ways that the economy could be quote-unquote fixed, or stabilised, which is probably a better word. But they're just a couple of reasons that I thought were interesting, and actually possibly could work. Let me know in the comments, how would you go about solving this massive economy issue? I think it'd just be interesting to see everyone's opinions. And also, if you've not watched yesterday's video about how the admins actually ruined the economy, then you should go watch that too. Anyway, that just about wraps up today's video. I hope you all have enjoyed. If you have, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.